Liza is broody. Once she starts feeling broody in earnest, she'll stop laying eggs for a month or so while she hatches the chicks and then raises them. So broody hens are non-productive hens. Even if you're not worried about production, a hen who sits on eggs that are not fertile will sit and sit and sit, losing more and more condition as she eats not very much, moves hardly at all, possibly not even drinking very much. It can be quite hard on a hen doing all of that sitting and waiting and not looking after herself. So unless you plan to hatch chicks from your broody hen, it's really a good idea to discourage her broodiness. And as you can see, she's taking up a nest box. That means the other hens are either going to squeeze in there with her, or they're going to find another place to lay. If they squeeze in there with her, there's a risk of damage to the eggs as they're all fighting for the same space, and the egg might get pushed out onto the floor and break. And if they find somewhere else to lay, you'll be hunting for eggs all over the place. So if you don't want your hens to go broody, what can you do to avoid that happening? Well, the season makes a bit of a difference to whether hens go broody or not. They're much more likely to go broody in spring when the weather's warming up. The temperature gives their body an indication that it's time to start getting those hormones going. And of course that means lots of lovely warm weather for raising chicks. There are a couple of things you can do to either encourage or discourage broodiness. If there are eggs in the nest box, then that will encourage hens to lay there, but it may also encourage them to be more broody. So it's a bit of a balancing act. Do you leave the eggs in the nest box to encourage them that that's a good place to lay, or do you take them out of the nest box to discourage them from being broody? One of the only real ways you can be sure of not getting broody hens, if you don't want them, is to choose what kind of breeds of hens you keep. Liza here is a light Sussex, and they're a heavy breed that are inclined to go broody. My Wyandottes are also inclined to go broody, as were the Orpingtons when I had some. But the commercial breeds, like the Highlines and Brown Shavers, it's extremely rare for them to go broody. And the light breeds, like the Leghorns, very seldom go broody either. So if you want to be sure to either have broody hens or not have broody hens, then choose the appropriate breed. So if you don't want this kind of behaviour, then you need to get onto it, and as quickly as possible. The sooner you get on to trying to discourage her broodiness, the more effective you're likely to be. The two keys are to disrupt her peaceful dreaming of chickens and to cool her down. When she's broody, her body temperature goes up, and that encourages more and more broodiness, and the whole thing is just a perpetuating cycle. So if you can cool down her body temperature, particularly the area around her belly, then she's less likely to carry on being broody and just sitting and sitting, as you see Liza doing here. So I start by just taking her off the nest box whenever I see her there, if I know she's not actually there to lay an egg. I will take her off and keep her away from the nest box for some time, possibly by locking her out if I'm pretty sure that she's finished laying eggs for the day. She'll pace up and down in a very agitated fashion if I do that, but that will help disrupt her peaceful dreaming as well as getting her moving. Whatever you do, make sure that after dark she's not sleeping on the nest box. If you have to, come in and pick her up and put her on the perch during the night. There's nothing like sleeping on the nest box all through the nice cozy night to encourage broodiness. If none of that's effective, then what I do next is lock her in the broody box. Many people advocate some kind of a broody box with a wire netting floor, so that she can get up off the ground and have cooling breezes on her tummy, and there's nowhere to settle down comfortably. Obviously, she needs food and water and a bit of shelter from the elements, but it shouldn't be too comfortable, and she really shouldn't have anywhere to settle down in this brooding sitting position. If you're too late and it's just impossible to break her from being broody, then possibly the only thing to do is to give her some fertile eggs and let her hatch the chicks. So watch what happens when I try to disturb her. A little bit of aggression there, and that very typical meow, that very typical kind of stance. All her feathers are up, and a growl. She doesn't want to be moved, but she's going to be moved. Sorry. Come on. Yes, you did find a nice clutch of someone else's eggs to lay on, didn't you? Now, there aren't any feathers in this particular nest box, but you'll often find that a broody hen will pluck out her own breast feathers to feather the nest with. She doesn't look too far gone. So here she is in the broody cage, while her friends are enjoying a welcome break from the rainy weather. As I said, she has food and water in there, and protection from the rain, but it's light and bright and breezy, and there's no nice cosy bedding to nestle in, just a perch or the cold, damp ground. At night I put her back on the perch with the others. If the next morning she behaves normally, the job is done. I seldom have to do this more than a couple of days in a row before she stops heading back to the nest box and her broody spell is over. Thanks for watching.